Hey, what's going on, everybody? Robert Marzullo here from Ram Studio Comics, and got another video for you today. And today's video is going to be on hands. I've done a video on this before, but I figured, I had a couple requests on it, and it's you can always get better at hands. So I could use the practice. I could show you guys how I practice and what I would do to better my understanding of hands, and some of the little tricks that I know that go with your hand drawings that might help you out. One is I kind of draw that wedge shape that you just saw a lot of times for a perspective hand, one that's coming out to the camera, and it goes like this, kind of has a little box shape off to the side, something like that. And you can even draw little openings for the fingers. They're always kind of on a little bit of a bend there, and then you just kind of build out from that, and you always draw these three little kind of sticks connected like that, and you get a perspective hand pretty quick. Um, After you start blocking in the shapes around that, using that as your guideline. I always start real rough and then do a couple layers, like I've talked about in other videos. I start real rough and then kind of refine it each time I add another layer. It helps you think more fluid-like, have some fluidity to your drawing, and not become overly structured with the drawing too fast. If you start off very structured and you try drawing, say, a finger all the way around, it's going to look very boxy and very basic. But if you take the method where you sketch it uh, and then draw over top of it a few times, you're going to get a more realistic kind of fluid feel to the artwork. So, all right, let me delete this. And let's go to some of the ideas behind the hand. One of the things that's really in particular to keep in mind, I'm going to kind of sketch the shape real quick. I want to show you one of the things I notice about the hand. I'll do a finger kind of pointing right at the camera, and let me explain that as I do it. The way I do that is I just do overlapping circles, kind of. And I kind of envision that it's getting larger as it's coming out to the camera, and that the only thing you're going to see is little irregularities in the finger, like the knuckles that are bumping up. And obviously this doesn't look realistic there, but that's kind of how I picture it. Another way to do that is to draw it with the coil method that I explain, that other artists here on YouTube have also explained. And that's just kind of picturing it coming out at you and drawing this coil, and you can kind of envision a 3D object a little bit better that way. At least I can, and maybe that'll work for you. But so yeah, so here's the finger coming out into perspective, or out of, pointing right at you in a forward perspective. Now the next fingers are going to bend down. This is kind of a pointing hand that I'm doing here, and there's this rotation that happens. It's important to keep that in mind, that these subtle bends that occur in the hand like that when doing drawings like this, because a lot of people will tend to draw their hand in the same perspective, and they'll draw it like this. They won't even shorten the pinky knuckle, and actually I didn't do it enough there, so whoops. The pinky knuckle's going to sit higher right there because it's a smaller finger. So it's a little bit larger than the ring finger, but not by much. And the pointer finger, if that was down, is a little bit shorter than the almighty middle finger. So just make sure you don't draw them too boxy and straight across. That's a common mistake, and looks very amateur and cartoon kind of like. So let's erase that. So yeah, there's the pointer finger. Now the thumb. The thumb is always kind of the rebel of the hand. It always kind of, has a totally different direction, but there is actually a relationship from the thumb to the pinky, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. And that's actually real important to take note of when you're drawing hands. But the thing that separates the thumb, the opposing thumb, the rebel of the bunch, is that it only has two what I would call visible segments. But if you notice, the thumb actually, its third segment is the entire part of your you know your grip of your hand. So it is a three segment type structure really, but it just doesn't appear the same way that the fingers do. I'll show you that in a second what I'm talking about. I just want to kind of sketch this hand. This is a pretty ugly hand, but I always tend to do a little bit worse when I'm trying to explain what I'm doing there, so forgive me for that. But it gets the point across, and that's my rough sketch. That's how I would start the hand. And now that I have a perspective where, the fingers kind of come out, I would actually probably grab my selection tool. Where's it at? Where's my tools? I got tools all over the place. Okay. I would probably actually take this finger here, and looking at reference, I'm sure this would back it up. I would make it larger. That's probably a little too large. You want it to dominate the rest of the hand and hide parts of the hand from this perspective. It's really going to dramatize that effect. That's probably about right there. So it's got to look larger. Anytime something comes out of receding space, it has to have that depth, that change in depth perception is going to add to the dramatization of it. So let's move that hand over here. Oh, and I was going to quickly sketch like how I would picture an arm now. I would kind of look at that, and then I would picture the arm kind of, this is be the forearm kind of bubbling out. Shouldn't draw it that round, but just for brevity's sake and speed, I'm just going to kind of throw that in there. And there you got kind of a foreshortened, arm pointing out, big muscular, bubbly comic book arm. Here you're going to get some of the lat that pops out to the side here. The chest actually is part of the shoulder, so it would roll up and around the bicep, blah, blah, blah. This isn't a anatomy drawing, so I'm going to just stop there. But, you see how that real quickly, just from getting that perception of the hand, I was able to kind of envision the rest of it, So Control T, size that down, move that over. Here's our pointing finger. And keep in mind, this is just rough. I'm not trying to do finished work here. I'm just trying to show some relationships and the techniques of the hand. So what I was trying to explain about the thumb earlier was this. So here's the thumb, right? Here's what appears to be the two segments of the thumb. Okay, the thumb doesn't tilt quite that far sideways, but something like that. And you get kind of this pockety flesh. And guess what? Right now, I haven't looked down at my hand yet. Okay, now it's time to look down at my hand. So I constantly do this. And then I realize, oh man, I drew this entirely wrong. So, and you'd think as many times as I've drawn a hand, I wouldn't have that problem, but I do. So I always look at my own hand. I take pictures of my hand. I use the camera from my my MacBook Pro to take pictures of foreshortened hands. Hands are one of those things that you will be drawing till the day, if you continue to be an artist and that's what you want to do, you're never going to feel, I don't want to say you're never going to be happy with the hands that you draw. That's not, you'll get a hand every now and then, you're like, oh man, that's awesome. I gotta hand it to myself. Or something, you'll see ones every now and then that you do, and your parts of it or aspects of it, and you'll be really pleased with yourself, I'm sure. But you will never cease to get better at drawing the hand. It's just so in depth as to the complexity of the human hand. So just I kind of take joy in that fact because I don't ever want to get bored of being an artist. So knowing that there's that much complexity to the stuff that we draw and that you can always get better, you can always put another spin on it, that's kind of cool. I kind of dig that. So hopefully you will too, or hopefully you do dig that also. And this is kind of a horrible hand. I'm looking down at mine and I'm realizing that I don't know why I decided to draw the pinky that long. You see I did that in both perceptions of it. The change in position here, I did it, it's not right there either. If I turn my hand down and look at it, at least on my hand, the pinky's even shorter still, so like that. But okay, so there's the hand, middle finger's probably a little bit bigger depending on your proportions. And the thumb looks really funky. What is wrong with that thumb? Hmm. Okay, so let me get to the portion that I was going to speak of about the thumb. The If you notice, obviously the fingers have three segments like this, right? Each one getting a little bit longer as it connects to the hand, or the palm of the hand. And the thumb looks like it only has two, then the connection. But really, if you start drawing all your different hand positions, you realize real quick that this part right here is the third segment. It's just covered into the flesh of the hand. Even the way that it moves. Uh, and a lot of people seem to forget that, and that's why they get very boxy looking hands, just like what I've drawn here, even though I was going for a very flat uh, hand on purpose. You'll see a lot of people draw that over and over again, and that's what they get every time, a very flat, unfluid like or unorganic looking hand or whatever, something that's not true to nature. So what I wanted to explain about that is that I think a lot of times they don't realize that that thumb, if you look at your own hand and you do different hand motions, it bends like the pinky does. There's actually a relationship from the thumb to the pinky. Um, oh, sorry, these rollouts. Um, so what ends up happening is if you look at a hand, I'll turn it palm up now, and I'll have the thumb come in like this. Here's the fleshy base part of the palm or whatever. I just always draw that as two segments. And this one usually directions out more towards the thumb like that, but just to keep this quick, we'll just sketch that in there. Okay, so now if you were to make these two connect inward, you would see that they do so very easily. Like if you hold your own hand up and do that, you'd realize real quick that your pinky and your thumb touch quite easily. I'll actually just draw them touching, so let me get that in there. It's because they have a relationship to them. They're similar in nature as far as the way the hand works. So it's almost like too how the pointer finger and the middle finger have a relationship. And you'll notice that if you ever try to separate them, it seems a little bit more difficult. There's a tendon in there that I'm not extremely good at anatomy, but they must work together because you'll feel that pull when you go to separate those fingers. So there's a bit of a relationship and an understanding there that you got to take notice of too. And once you start picking apart little things like that, and then you go to draw your same drawing, it's funny, it'll kind of work out in your mind. You'll think, oh wait, the hand wouldn't do that, it would do this or whatever. And I'm not some pro at this. I'm just explaining to you a few techniques that run through my mind as I do this stuff. And that pinky's horrible now that I'm looking at it. And again, I'll look down at my own hand. It would actually round. This whole shape would round as the pinky turns in like that. There wouldn't be a jagged point there. And actually, the center part of the palm would come together more. So that's where I'm messing up. And see, that's probably why I should look at my hand when I do this. I was trying to draw from memory again, and that's where I always mess up. I'm so used to drawing comic books that I tend to not look at reference, but the more I try to improve my abilities, the more I do look at reference now. It's very important. It helps you to find flaws like this that I'm actually doing right now. Tell you the truth, the thumb actually turns over. The pinky stays relatively straight up and forward. So it kind of goes like this. I end up erasing this whole thing. This is horrible. Sorry. Try again. So the pinky stays relatively upright and actually doesn't even turn around like I had it drawn there. Something like that. The thumb comes inward, and from looking at your own hand, you're going to see the thumb come where you see the, I don't know what you want to call it, the nail side of the thumb, whether that be the back side or the front or however you're looking at that. So the nail side of the thumb is the part that you see here. Sketch that in real quick. And the knuckle comes up here. Lots of wrinkles in here. The other thing I was noticing is the fingers were a lot more behind those fingers from that perspective. Something like that. Yeah, so at any rate, you'll want to sketch these out and mess with it and kind of do your own little research and study of it, um, and see what you come up with. But there is that relationship to the pinky, and the more that you start to think about this bottom part of the thumb being like a third segment, third part of the finger, like one of the fingers, you'll realize that you got a lot more movement in there, that you can do, the hand can do a lot more uh, dynamic shapes because of that. So that was my point, even though this hand is pretty ugly. Again, more of just a rough sketch. By the time I took this to a couple layers, studying some hands as I was drawing it, I'd be able to get it to something more complete. Let's see. Where's my selection tool again? Okay, and resize that. Another hand. Okay, so now what else can I explain about the hand? We've got kind of a perspective shot. Kind of explains how to draw a fist if you use that same effect. Or hand gestures. So yeah, at any rate, each time I would draw a different hand gesture. Let's try one from an angle shot. Here's my beginning box kind of wedge shape. I'll draw one of the fingers. There's my 3 segments. 1, 2, 3, each getting shorter as it comes out. I'm going to have the thumb on the top of the hand here. So the thumb sits pretty much on the top center of this shape or whatever. I would draw kind of a connector box, a little wedge like this. The fleshy part of the thumb right there. I don't know why I call it the fleshy part, but oh well. And then the thumb kind of lifting up and drawing the 2 segments in there, and then the connection to the other part of the hand with some wrinkles. There's always that bunched up skin right in there, so you can kind of sketch that in and start piecing it together. From this perspective, the thumbnail would probably kind of round out this way. You got that little bit of line work that's at the bottom of the thumb. At least that's how I always draw it in. A little bit of line work on the knuckle, and there's our thumb positioning. And then I would generally go back and start erasing some of my construction lines just to give myself a better visual and not get so confused with all the little scribbles that I threw in there. So I'll get rid of a couple of those. And now immediately from looking at it from this perspective, I see that I would probably bring that finger up a little bit higher. It looks like it's pointing downward. Although I think the hand's capable of that position, it's just not what I was after. So there's the first segment, rounded bottom, second segment, third segment, a couple little wrinkles where it connects the rest of the hand, erase some of the construction lines. Another good technique when you're doing anything really, not just hands, is always try to erase some of your lines and then put them back. It helps you kind of visualize a better way to draw stuff, I guess. You don't want to get in the habit of just leaving traced looking lines over your whole drawing. I don't know, something about it looks very fake and amateurish, so try to, I don't want to say draw more with less. I mean, it's kind of that regard, but it's mainly that your line variation is a big part of making your stuff look kind of cool. So you see that a lot when you erase certain lines and put them back in. Like I might put some thicker lines to the bottom of the hand here where there might be shadow. Extend the length of the middle finger. This at least seems short still. But then I might do lighter, less connected lines at the top where there might be some light source. So that's all I'm saying. It's like just putting some variation in your line work will give you kind of a different spin on your drawings and always make them look a little bit more interesting. Seeing the hand's actually taking shape and becoming larger than my initial sketch, but that's alright. You know, if that looks better, then go with looks better. Don't feel that you gotta force it all into the original box shape that you started with. Alright, then I'll start trying to roll these fingers back into the hand. Again, keeping in mind there's 3 segments, 1, 2, and 3, right there. 1, 2, and 3, right there. The other fleshy part of the palm. And the wrist coming back. Maybe like a end of a shirt. Okay, so now you'll notice too, I'll zoom in and zoom out a lot of times to look stuff over. So now, what looks funky to me, I'll start looking down at my hand again. Yep, and sure enough, what looks funky to me is a few things. Let's see, where do I start? There's a couple. The middle finger is too chubby and too short, at least compared to what I'm looking at with my hand. And also the 2 fingers that are rolled back are just horribly disfigured and misshaped. So let's go ahead and adjust those now. What I'm seeing when looking down at my own hand is that the first series of knuckles points up like this, so that was pretty close. But then they point back and flatten out into the hand more, where I had them kind of bulge outward like they would. I don't know what my thinking was or whatever, just whatever, you know, it looked visually like that's what it would do. And the pinky, at least the way my hand goes when it does this, looks almost completely flat. So this little bit of a ridge here that you get from the finger bending, its 3rd segment back towards the palm, is very slight in the ring finger and then almost non-existent in the pinky finger. And again, that's just my hand and the way it's working when I'm making this position. And then for whatever reason, the middle finger is way off. Even position wise, let's see. When I look down at mine, it looks more like this. My middle finger is actually a lot larger than most because I use it quite a bit. It gets plenty of exercise. I used it today earlier when I was driving on the expressway. No, I'm just kidding, I didn't, but I have. I can't stand idiot drivers. I'm not a big fan of idiots altogether, to tell you the truth, but whatever. I heard something pretty smart on the idea of thinking someone's an idiot. I really don't think anybody's an idiot. It said, don't be quick to call those around you stupid or less intelligent. What was it? Because there was a time when you didn't know what you know now. And honestly, I think it was like Malcolm X or somebody that said it, but pretty wise words, you know, like, you know, there was a time when you didn't know what you know right now. That's kind of prolific, you know. So sorry, I'm not trying to be all smart and preach and preachy and all that. It just came to mind as I was talking about flipping people off. Yeah. Awkward. Okay, so at any rate, there's another hand. It's not that great, but hopefully it gets the point across and what I'm trying to explain as far as the breakdown of the shapes, and you know, because that's all this stuff is. You're trying to make something look 3D in a 2D world of line work. I think that's the problem too, is this looks too, yeah, there needs to be a little bit of a divider there. So yeah, you know, and you just keep playing with it. I mean, you're like I said before, with hands, you're going to be drawing them all the time. You're going to be changing them all the time and getting better at them. So hopefully this helps and gives you a little bit of insight on how I would draw some hands and how you might come up with your own. If it does, be sure to like, be sure to subscribe. Tell me what you think. Give me ideas for new videos, all that jazz, and I will keep bringing them to you. And sorry this one ran a little bit long. I don't think I should have took 25 minutes to draw a few hands like this, but you know, I had fun explaining it too. So thanks very much for watching. Oh, one more thing too, if you happen to want to check it out, I just launched my own website. It's robertmarzullo.com, and it'll showcase a lot of my artwork. You can also go to my DeviantArt under ramstudios1.deviantart, but the robertmarzullo.com is my own site. I built it. All the art's mine, blah blah blah, you know. So just be cool if you check it out and let me know what you think. So thanks for watching, thanks for stopping by. More stuff on the way, so be sure to stop back. Take care, keep drawing, have fun. Bye bye.